and welcome to the final part of the 16 block Christmas hanging. My name's Louise Nichols, I'm a textile artist and I live in Cornwall. Now I'm really sorry, but the final part of this, or parts as I think it's going to be, it's not going to be quite how I planned because we've lost our internet. During the storm, which was last Saturday, it's now, what day is it, Thursday today, a tree blew down a little bit further down the lane, snapped the wire. We've got fibre to the premises, so we've got good internet generally, but it snapped the wire. BT thought they'd have it back online today, but when the guy came out on Tuesday, they don't think we're going to be back on until after Christmas now. Which causes all sorts of problems, as you can imagine. We've become very reliant, haven't we, on the internet? Anyway, and that's the reason the last video was a bit later. I was going to post that, or Graham was going to upload that and get that onto YouTube last Saturday, but of course the storm happened on Saturday, and we've been away for a couple of days, and we ended up taking the laptop and various things with us to try and do it from our hotel room. Which also caused problems, but anyway, that was absolutely fine. It was all uploaded, but I think the problem is with the line. It's also broke the post as the trees come down. It's such a big tree. As the tree came down, it snapped the post that the wire is where it's kind of supported. So anyway, it's going to be a big job, and the tree's not been removed yet. They've cleared the lane, but the tree is still in the foliage, or anyway, they're meant to be coming to clear that. So basically what I've got to do, or what I've been told I need to do now, is very, very short snippets that can be uploaded easily. So I'm not going to do another introduction. I'm only going to do this as my final introduction, but it may be that all the videos will be uploaded in small sections, and we'll number them in parts. So I think, is this part 10 or 11? Whatever this is, it will then, there may be sort of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 maybe even. So it's just broken down into smaller sections. So, and the problem as well here, we've got no mobile signal either. We're in a black spot. So we have nothing. We've got no means of communication at all. Anyway, the joys of living in the sticks, which is beautiful. But anyway, I will be back in 2025 with hopefully internet allowing. We'll be back onto designing the kit from scratch. There'll be several other new things. So I just really want to say I hope you all have a very, very Merry Christmas and a peaceful New Year. Thank you so, so much to everybody who's given me support, sent comments about the 16 block hanging, well, and everything really. It all means a great deal. So, and hopefully these videos will get to you. I think Graham's going to go, and when he's finished his block of next shifts, he's going to go and sit in the library, try and do it all in there, get it all uploaded in there. But thank you so much for your support. And I'm going to, you see, it's all ready to go behind me. So I'm going to get on with that now, and I'll see you in the new year. Sorry, a little bit to add in. I completely forgot. I need to apologise because in all the worry about getting the video out while we were away, I completely forgot to tell Graham. In fact, I don't know if we'd have been able to have done it anyway because the signal was quite poor in the hotel. But I didn't add any extra wording on about stitching around the outside of the reindeer when it's on the green fabric. And the star when it's on the very pale grey. On the original I'd stitched around it with the darker grey thread, whereas on this one I've done it with cream. Completely forgot about it. I'm so sorry. Anyway, thank you. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to iron our fuser web onto the back of the finished squares. So these squares, you're going to be trimming right down to the edge, and they measure 15 centimeters, well, approximately, give or take the odd millimetre, 15 centimetres square. which is about 6 inches, isn't it? 6 inches square all the way around. So what I've done, I've measured myself one square which measures 16 centimetres, which is about 6.5 inches square, and then I've just used that as a template to cut out the rest of my pieces. So obviously you will need 16 because you've got 16 blocks that you're going to back. You don't have to be too accurate with this. If you want to make them a bit bigger, you can do, but you're going to trim it off really. I just like to give myself, you know, sort of a centimetre or so all the way around to cut down to once I've ironed it onto the back. If you want to give yourself a bigger border, I mean, you can do, that's absolutely fine. It doesn't really matter. Now with these, you can quite easily see where the edge of those prints are and where you're going to be trimming. So you know that when you iron that onto the back, you're going to be covering the whole of the area that you need to cut down to, if that makes sense. Whereas with the plain squares, it's not quite as easy. So what you could do, I don't know if you can, if it's picking it up on the camera here, but I've measured around the outside so that I know that when I iron my square on, I need to just make sure that it sits inside that square that I've drawn. That's a 15, I've measured 15 centimetres. I've found my centre point and measured around. You can use your, you know, if you're a quilter, you can use your rulers and things to do that maybe more easily. And then I'm going to iron that on the back. Now, you should have all your beads stitched on now as well. If you haven't, make sure you have before you do this next stage. And then because these are quite lumpy, what I use is a piece of wadding. So it could be the wadding that you're going to put inside if you want to use that. And then have your print face down, and because it's all padded, it will take the beads so that you've still got a nice flat surface to iron on. Put that on the top, and then get my big bit of baking parchment. I'm going to pop that over the top. I've already got my iron on. No steam, you don't need any steam for this. And just iron on the back. You just need to make sure that should be okay. You can always turn it back over. That's stuck nicely. But if you want to iron it from the front as well, you know, you can always come back in. It probably wouldn't matter if the iron was on there actually, but I'm just going to use my baking parchment. I don't want to at this point now melt the felt. So, but that would just make sure that it's really well and truly ironed on. Okay, I'm just going to switch my iron off. And as I say, with this one you can actually see where to position these. So what I'm going to do now, as I explained, I'm going to do short snippets, so there'll be quite a few more cuts in these, because I don't know quite how Graham's going to put them together and how much he'll be able to upload when he goes to the library in Liscard to do it. So I'm going to iron all of these on, and then I'll bring you back in again. Okay. Now, I've just found my, I've got one of these square things. In fact, I'm going to have to just turn the overhead light off because it's shining on the plastic, and hopefully, in fact, now you can see so dark again today, you can see the light coming from the, let's see if I can just move that over. We might be in a little bit more darkness, but at least you'll be able to see the rule. So I've got one of these square things here with all the inch measurements down the side. So as I was saying, you could say find your centre point, and they're approximately 6 inches square. So you could then mark it that way so that you've got your square on the back. I just used a ruler and sort of measured out from the centre point. The good thing actually about this is that then when you peel off your fuser web, in fact, let me turn it back on again now and bring that back in. Now we're getting rid of the plastic. Hang on. Where are we? Oh, turn it off altogether. That's it. There we go. Yeah, when you peel it off, look, you can see your pencil mark that you've made, or you could use one of those pens if you want to, which then makes it easy for trimming down, and you know that you've got a good square. Depends how fussy you are, doesn't it? I'm not too worried if it's slightly, I mean, I want them to be fairly central, but I'm not too worried about them being absolutely spot on 15 centimetre squares. Okay, you know, a couple of millimetres or a fraction of an inch here or there to me is not going to matter too much. Okay, I mean, otherwise, when you've peeled off your fuser web or bonder web, you could again use one of those pens and measure it from this side if you don't want to cut from the lines at the back. Okay. Okay, there we go then. So I did all my flat ones, all the ones that you've just seen me iron with my ironing mat underneath. They're all the ones that don't have any beads on. So I'm just going to switch my iron off. There we go. And you can now start to peel the backings off. So get rid of all of those. If you get a little bit like that, don't worry about that, but if you're really struggling to pull it off and it's leaving quite big sections of paper behind, or you can see that it's lifting the glue, you'll need to go back and put a bit more heat on. It just means that you've not melted it enough for the paper to be pulled away. And you can see there, look, there's my line around the outside. So I'm going to peel all these backings off now. Okay, so that's all the backings off now. So I'm just going to swap my, so let me just put all this paper that I've peeled off the back. That all goes in my recycling now, so I'll just pop that in there. And I'm going to swap my ironing mat for my cutting mat. So let me pull one out of the way and bring the other one in. Let's turn it that way. Okay, right. So now you can either go in and cut with your scissors. Now, if you don't trust this line that you've drawn, then, you know, maybe cut a little bit further out, turn it over, and then you can cut down if you don't feel it's going to be accurate enough. But I'm going to trust the line that I've drawn. So, as I say, you can either cut it with scissors like this, and as I thought as I was drawing the rest of these out, if you use, and I did put, I got Graham to put some wording on, didn't I? Don't use a disappearing pen that disappears when you iron, because your lines will all disappear. I used a 2B pencil when I was drawing my lines. So it's quite a soft pencil, a 2B pencil. So it draws onto the fabric quite nicely, and it leaves a nice dark line that you can easily see. So either scissors, or if you've got one of these not dressmaking, quilting, plasticky ruler things, then you could use this if you wanted to. And just trim down the lines like that. I mean, you could use this if it is a little bit, again, if you're wanting to be really accurate, you could use that to make sure that you are nice and straight. But I'm fine with that. Now, if you are going to be, let me find one, with all the, there we go. So this one here, oh no, I can't show you from there because I'm going to cut that from the front anyway. I'm thinking of the one from the back. So the reindeer here, you've got your bead on the nose. Now, normally if I'm using my wheel with this, I would have my ruler on the inside, but because of having that bead there, it makes it a little bit rocky and it could move. So I would go and cut from the outside, keep my board to this side, not have it in the middle, and then it's less likely to slip as you're cutting. Okay. But with these it doesn't matter at all. Although I am going to, again, there I can't have my block thing there, my ruler. So I'm just going to excuse me, and I'm coming right up to that line there. Again, these might not be completely square, but I'm not too worried about that. It's not like with a quilt, is it, where it's all got to be absolutely accurate for the corners to meet. You know, you've got a little bit of leeway with this one. Okay, so they should, well, that's a little bit bigger than that one. If you do find that, you can trim them down a little bit more, which I probably will do actually with that one, looking at the difference on there. Okay, right, so I'm going to trim the rest of these down, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so I've put you really high, so hopefully you'll be able to sort of get a good idea of what I'm doing here now. So I have trimmed all my squares down. So there, well, some of them I've started laying out, as you can see, and the rest of them are over here. I did trim the reindeer down a little bit more. I think the initial square that I'd drawn out was just over 15 centimetres, so I did trim it down a little bit more. But I mean, you can see here, they're not all completely accurate, but I'm not worrying too much about that. And as I thought on a previous video, I am going to go for a darker backing on this one. So if you're not sure, if you've not already bought your fabric that we're going to now mount these all onto, and you're not sure, maybe fast forward to the end, or watch the final video so that you can see the difference, because it will make a difference overall. I'm not sure what I'm going to use to wrap around the edge yet. I haven't looked at that. But anyway, I am going to go for this. I might even go for a lighter background fabric, but I am going to go for this darker grey. I think it will be good as well for a sample, so people can see the difference, because I do take this to, I do a workshop as well, and so it will be good for people to see the difference between the darker and the lighter backgrounds. So the original background fabric, as we spoke about in the previous video, and I told you where to get it, is from is the silver 002 silver, and I gave you an alternative of where to buy that from, didn't I? Because I bought mine from Fabric Giant, but they don't appear to stock it at the moment. So I'm going for the next one down, which is in my book here, which is light grey. So it's the same fabric, the same type of fabric, it's just a shade below. Now I can't remember if they do other shades in between the two, but mine is down as light grey, and I'm going to go for that. So I'm just going to move my original out the way. So what I've got here is this piece of fabric measures, it's about 71 centimetres square, which is 28 inches square. If you want to leave yourself a bigger border, then you can do. Obviously you'll need a bigger bit of fabric, but when it comes down to excuse me, trimming it down, I've only got 2 centimetres there down the outside edge, but as I say, you might want a wider, might want a wider one, so you'll just need a bigger bit of fabric. I've ironed it. That blob there, that's just where the water, sometimes my iron decides to release a load of water onto whatever it is that I'm ironing. So anyway, that's all that is, that's drying there. So what I've done, I've started to, I want it roughly in the middle, or even though I'm going to trim it down, I still want it roughly in the middle. So I've begun to lay out my outside edge there. And if you want to use one of these long ruler things, just to make sure that you're sort of roughly on track, you can see there, that's a fairly nice straight edge, as is that one there. I think that's pretty good. And again, you can, when you come to finally trimming it, you can use your, if you've got one of these things, you know, to make sure that you have got a square piece of work at the end of it. I'll just lift that off there. Okay. Right, so so I've got those outside ones in, so I'm going to place my 4 in the middle now. So that is, what have I got? I need this one, and I'm paying attention as well to which way I'm laying the stripes. So I'm going to just pop that one there, like that. And then it's the grey holly next to that there. And above that is the pudding with the holly background there. And then we've got the mistletoe, and the stripes are going down on that one as well there. And then around those edges I've got my star there. So now I'm just going to move this down slightly. And make sure that the star's the right way up. There we go. And then what comes above that? Let me look. So we've got the robin with the green spots, which goes there. And we've got, yeah, the holly up there, and then it's the stocking there, the tree, and then the pudding in that top corner there. Okay, now as I say, you can be really accurate with this if you really want to be. Oh, look at that, look, not quite long enough. So that's about 62 centimetres I've got my blocks measuring from this edge here to here. So it is slightly wider at the top, so I can just sort of shuffle those in a little bit more. I'm not a quilter. I don't, there are probably some easier and quicker ways of doing this. If you know an easier and quicker way, then please do. But I'm going to go with that. I think that's absolutely fine there. Okay, as I say, if you really want to trim some of these down a little bit more, you can do. Now, I've laid them out and I'm on my cutting mat. I should have said that, shouldn't I? When I said, well, you can see I'm on my cutting mat. Not my cutting mat, my ironing mat. Because once, it's a little bit trickier if you've got an ironing board, isn't it? But I've found, I used to have an ironing board here in the workroom. But actually, if you're wanting to iron bigger pieces, I find this, I've got rid of the ironing board now, and I just get my mat out and put it on my table, and you can see things all laid out much better than if it's draping over the side of an ironing board. And also, if you've got things sort of then exactly where you want to iron them, you don't have to then carry it from the table to your board. It's already there. Because what I'm going to do now is to take away these outside squares, switch my iron on, but I know I'm happy with those. I don't need to trim anything else down, so I can just pop those out the way now. And I'm just going to pull this towards me a little bit, being very careful not to move the squares because I'm happy with where they are. Get my baking parchment, and once my iron is hot enough, and I'm not using any steam with this. I don't need steam unless you need to press out any creases. I'm just going to be careful where my beads are, and then I'm just going to iron these into place, being very, very careful that I'm not moving them. As I'm ironing. So again, I'm just being careful of that bead at the top of the pudding there. And again, just be aware of where your beads are on your mistletoe there. Take the iron in between those beads there. If you've got one of those little diddy irons as well, they're really handy. I don't have one, but I've seen ladies using them on workshops. Again, you can kind of get right into all the little nooks and crannies with those, can't you, if you really want to? But I think I'm quite happy with that. I'll just check, but I think I'm fairly well ironed down. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Just that little bit there. Sometimes it's the corners, isn't it? We concentrate on ironing the middle bits and you sometimes forget about your corners. Okay, so they're all nice and secure now. Switch my iron off, and then I'm now going to go and I'm going to machine around the outside edge. So I'm going to set the camera up over with my sewing machine and try and get as good a picture of that as possible. If I'd ironed on all of the outside squares as well, it just would have made it trickier to stitch these centre pieces. I mean, if you want to iron on one at a time, that's absolutely fine as well. But I'm going to do the 4. And in between there, you've got roughly a centimetre gap there. I don't know what that is in, what's a centimetre in inches? Let's have a look. Use my rule. It's just under half an inch, isn't it? Just under half an inch there in between the two. Okay, and I haven't backed this with anything. This is just straight onto the fabric. So okay, I'm going to go and set you up over at the sewing machine, and hopefully you could see all of that. So what I'm going to attempt to do now is to show you how I've got my machine set up. So I've got my number 1 thread in the top there, and I've wound some onto the bobbin underneath. Now I have a Janome, there we go, and it's this model here, very basic machine, and I've got it set on the widest zigzag. So on my machine it's C, and then I've got, so C for the selector, and then my stitch length is just on, sorry, it's going in and out of focus there, isn't it? It's just on number 1. Okay, so I'm now going, I've got the tripod set at the side of me, so I'm going to pop you in there. Try not to switch the camera off, which I did a minute ago, and sort of turn that, and hopefully I will take you off again so that you can see. Let's bring that light in a little bit more. There we go. I'm just going to show you me getting started on these. Right, move my mic out the way as well. So I'm going to pass this underneath my needle there, and I'm going to start on the first one, this pudding here. So I can feel I've got my thread there. Now whenever I am starting to machine, I always keep hold of that thread, because sometimes you'll pull your needle or wind your needle in. I always position my needle in to start off with, and I'll take you off the tripod in a minute and show you where that is. But sometimes when you move that needle, if you've only got a short length of thread, it will pull it out. So I'll just keep my finger on that as I am winding that needle down. So I'm going to wind the needle down now, and I'm going to show you, take you off again, and then just show you where that's positioned if I can, and hopefully you'll be able to see. Sorry, it's a little bit wobbly. Okay, so can you see? There, look, I've got my needle, it's literally on the corner there. Okay, and as I'm machining, I'm going to make sure that every time the needle drops, it falls right on the, it's not even going into the edge of this top block here. It's going to go into the background fabric. Okay, so I'm going to start that. Let me get you back on the tripod. Put my foot down, and then very slowly so I don't know if I can, let me do a little bit more and then I can probably show you. When you come to some of the, if you've got any little French knots or anything that's a little bit bobbly, I think it's probably only this one, then just be careful as you're going over, because sometimes it can push your foot out the way. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you out of here again and see if I can just sort of show you. Can you see how that zigzag is? It's right on the edge. Okay, so I'll continue down here as I'm machining. I don't think I can really, unless I have a go at machining and filming, holding the camera, be prepared for everything to go disastrously wrong, because I can't actually, I'm watching, can you see how I'm doing that? Trying not to go too fast. I'm not going to do too much because I'm machining, watching through the camera rather than the actual machine itself. But I'm going to, see that's come away a little bit there. Look where it's not ironed down properly. But anyway, it won't matter. It will hold enough as we're machining. So I'm going to get to the corner and then I'm going to show you again what I'll do at the corner. Okay, how I turn the corner. Okay, so when I've got to the corner here, look, I've tried to sort of make sure that my needle falls right on that corner again. And then as I lift the foot, like that, I'm going to turn it round because I'm now going to machine down this side, and my needle is now in the right position to machine down the rest of this side here. And again, when you get to that corner, I just make sure that my needle falls there, turn it round. I might go and just iron it. See, that's lifted off there a little bit. Again, don't worry if that happens, doesn't matter at all. You just go and iron it back down, which I will do before I machine anymore. But you can see my needle's ready to go again. Pop my foot back down. So I'm going to finish machining around the outside of this one, and then I'll do all the other three, and then I'll bring you back in. Okay, so that's the four middle ones all stitched on. So what I'm going to do now is to sew them on in groups of two. So I'm going to iron these two on next, then I'll do these two, and then these two, and then finally I'll end up with the corner ones, and I'll be just measuring at the same time just to make sure it's all fairly square. So I'm just going to pull that down a little bit. Now I meant to say as well earlier on, if you bought the packs from me, you will have noticed on the sort of general instructions that I do say to stitch on all the beads after you've ironed them onto the background. But when I made the original, I did find that a little bit fiddly, which is why I've changed it for the video. So I didn't want you to think I was telling you the wrong thing. But I found it easier, even having to sort of iron around them once they're on here, rather than sort of trying to, you know, position your beads and hold this massive piece of fabric. I did find it easier to stitch them on when they're smaller pieces like this. Okay, and the other thing I should have said before I machined was, if you want to hand sew, then obviously you can. I think there's probably enough of that cream. Hang on, let me get the original threads. I think you've probably got enough of this finger size 16 if you want to stitch around the outside using that again. There's certainly enough of the sewing thread, which is still on my machine. I can't show you that one at the minute. There's certainly enough of that if you want to just do a little up and over stitch around the outside, or anything else. I mean, you could do a blanket stitch if you wanted to. Whatever, you know, if you want to use a really fancy stitch, if you've got a really fancy machine that does all sorts of different stitches, then you know, feel free to try something a little bit different. That's really down to you. So I'm just going to round that bead on the top of the tree there, and then once they're ironed on, I'm going to go over and machine them on exactly in the same way that I showed you with these 4 centre blocks. And any threads, what I do is, because obviously you're left with the thread on the top, I pull those through to the back just so it finishes the front off nicely. Now I tie mine off, but I know some machines do a little thing, don't they? It finishes it off for you, but I tie mine off on the back. Okay, so I'm going to go and machine these 2 on now.